Hello and welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Dr. Jerkyl's Hide, and with me today is Chester himself, is my good friend Eli Copperman. Say hi.
Hi there, Anthony. Are you ready to start reviewing cartoons?
Blimey. Yeah, I'll start talking like Alf in this one. You say blimey at the end of every sentence or something. Now, just a few bits of info to get underway. So, as mentioned, this is Dr. Jekyll's Hyde, released on the 8th of May, 1954. It's the 710th in the series, and it's directed by Friz Freleng. There is a HD restoration out there. At the time of this recording, it's not on disc yet, and hopefully it will at some point, because you will not find it on YouTube. It is a copyrighted cartoon, so you won't see it on YouTube unless Warner Brothers themselves decide to upload it. So, in case you haven't seen this one, it's more or less a remake where you don't have Spike and Chester, you've got Alf and Chester this time around. They're going through the London streets, they see Sylvester, and Sylvester ends up going into Dr. Jerkyl's, I guess, laboratory, drinks sody pop, and becomes a monster every time Alf sees him, but then gets back to normal every time Chester sees him. So nothing deep, and these things certainly aren't.
Nope. If they were deep, we'd have a different director on board, not for Freleng.
Yeah, exactly. And we say that with love, by the way. It's
Oh
not a
yeah.
criticism in any case,
Yeah.
but just a few bits of trivia for this one. The title itself, it should be obvious, but not everyone's going to know this, so I'll mention it anyway. But the title is a play on Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and the full name of the story is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, although some say it should have been announced as Jekyll instead of Jerkyll, or Jekyll rather, not
Yeah.
Jerkyll. But in any case, that's where it comes from, regardless of how you choose to pronounce it.
The fact that they called it this, even though it doesn't really have to do with Dr. Jekyll, outside of the science fact, is kind of interesting. I don't know what else they could have called this cartoon, but say perhaps something related to the dogs and something horror related. But at the same time, it fits. Like anyone who was familiar with, if not the book, then definitely the film adaptations back in the day, like they were definitely familiar with it. So I guess it was fair to have that comparison.
And in this case, we do have an unusual bit of detail because earlier on, Friz Freleng had the background painter Paul Julian, and he would always put these little things in the background, like Frizz's, I don't know, auto shop or this and that. Like there'll be a play on different crew members, but then as soon as Irv Weiner or Weiner, whatever you want to, I don't know how to pronounce his surname,
Weiner,
Weiner,
I
yeah,
think.
comes on board. He doesn't really do that, but he does here just once though, and that's referring to the Weiner Loan Company. So I guess that's what he moonlights as, and that's that. But I just thought it was interesting that we actually do see him referring to himself, which usually he doesn't really do. But this short is essentially a remake of Tree for Two. Now, in that one, and the review is up on the channel with my good friend Devin Baxter. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out, as he also does a wonderful animated breakdown, which is something I wish I could do a lot more of these reviews. But in that one, you got Spike and Chester. So that takes place in, I'm assuming, New York or some sort of a city like that anyway. You have an escaped wildcat or panther, and you have Spike and Chester up against, well, Sylvester, right? But every time Spike goes
Yeah.
after Sylvester, it's really the panther that does the damage, and Chester's like, kidding Spike, and whenever he sees Sylvester, and that's that. Here, for some weird reason, instead of using Spike and Chester, they changed them to having British accents, both of them, Alf and Chester, or Alfie and Chester, whatever you want to say. And instead of having a panther, they have Sylvester in a parody of the Dr. Jekyll story, where in that one, you have Mr. Hyde, he drinks a formula and turns into a monster. And yes, I'm oversimplifying things, but that's essentially what it is.
Yeah,
It's a remake, yet it's its own thing as well.
it is. And at the same time, one could argue that they probably could have used someone else, like some other dog or some other foe against Sylvester, other than, I guess, Spike and Chester, or, Alfie and Chester, if you want to call them in this. But at the same time, one can imagine they felt that the need to reuse them, not just because of the budgetary reasons, like, oh, we don't have enough money to make a model for a new character and just use these old guys who we used once, but also for the sense that considering they had to crank these cartoons out a lot, you figure why not just use characters who were already used before, and why do a new formula when you already had a a pretty decent cartoon with Tree for 2. It's like, in this case, let's just redo that story, but in a different setting and a different context. You can say that reusing stories is probably not the best idea, but in an economic minded studio that prioritize quantity over quality, but in this case, they prioritize their quality at the same time. I don't see anything wrong with redoing the story because it definitely worked the first time. Although, and I did mention this to you, Anthony, the short, in my opinion, is more concise than Tree for Two, only because it starts with Alfie and Chester, whereas that one started off with the setup of Black Panther having escaped a zoo. But I will say that one, in my opinion, made that short a lot funnier because it was more grounded and the jokes pretty much wrote themselves there. Whereas here, there's not much jokes to redo since you're redoing a concept and they do it pretty well. But at the same time, I can imagine other people having the same thoughts as I do.
And speaking of economical, this one is so economical to the point where, aside from the obvious action happening off screen moments, and you see a lot of that here, and aside from the
Oh, yeah.
fact you have now 3 characters instead of 4, because in Tree for 2, you've got the Panther, Sylvester, and the 2 dogs. Here, you just have the 2 dogs and Sylvester, right? Although technically you could count the Fly as another character, but anyway, that's such a minor thing towards the end. But it's the reuse of animation. So as we go
Yeah.
through this short in this review, I will point out what's repeated, but I do want to stress that this is not me putting the short down for doing it. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do to meet your quota. And honestly, people at the time in the theaters and the cinemas and such, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't know because they wouldn't have had the luxury of seeing the other short roughly around the time of this one's release anyway. So it's not a criticism, it's just an observation. We'll put it that way, and I'll point out the ones that I can identify. And if I do miss any, that's what the comment section's for. Definitely let me know. But I am curious, especially in the beginning as we open up the short, right? So rather than starting with the whole hoo-ha of an escaped animal, we start straight away with Alf and Chester walking along, and Chester's all excited, and Alfie's just all grumpy. Now, they clearly redubbed it, and because it's reused animation from Tree for 2, but I do wonder for these particular bits, were the voice actors, in this case, Stan Freberg voicing Chester and Mel Blanc voicing Alf, did they
Yeah.
redub it as it is, like the original version, then they just reused the animation, or did they just do it anyway and then they just made it fit with the animation? I'm genuinely curious how they would have done it.
That's what I'm wondering too. It's definitely possible that they recorded the voices beforehand, but at the same time, it wasn't out of the question to have animation done and then you do voiceovers after. I mean, the Fleischer Studios did that forever for a long time.
Hey, you want I should dig up some bones for you? Anything you say, Spike. Because you and me is pals. That's right, ain't it, Spike? Beating up a cat. Would you like that, Spike? Huh? Would you like that? Huh, Spike?
Cat? You know where is it, a cat?
I say, we're jolly chums, aren't we, Alfie, old boy? Through thick and thin, all that sort of rot. Aren't we now, Alfie? I say.
Lost you! Go home, you mongrel! Quit following me!
It was probably just a case of just using already done animation to, I guess, match already done that dialogue.
So at the end of the day, I'm just curious about what the process would have been in this case. And if you know more about it, let me know in the comments below. So we get the similar setup where Chess is suggesting all these ideas of what they could do to stave off their boredom. And Alfie's having none of that. He even knocks over his supposed friend. And eventually, Chester suggests getting a cat. And I love the delivery of Alf.
That, Alf? How would you like that, Alf?
Blimey, lad, did you say cat?
Blimey, lad, did you say cat? That delivery.
As soon as you mention cat, it's just like, okay, I'm going to put off everything I'm doing right now, even though I'm super busy, to go beat up a cat.
And speaking of cat, we see Sylvester, and look, say what you want about Jones and his observations of how cats behave when it comes to animating Claude Cat and that. Freeling does one good thing here where he got Sylvester, he's clearly dreaming about something funny. And I don't know if you've seen cats. I mean, obviously they don't laugh at that, but they're clearly dreaming of something.
Oh, they do.
And they're just like, I don't know.
Oh,
talking.
they do. They do.
I thought it was cute, and I thought it was pretty funny as well. And the animation of him being shocked when he sees the 2 dogs and running off is great as well. So yes, there's a lot of reuse of animation here, but most of the reuse is just pretty much the two dogs. A lot of what Sylvester goes through is mostly new, except for I think 1 or 2 bits.
Oh yeah. They actually get some really good mileage out of him. I don't know who animated this, but the scene where he enters the laboratory and he drinks the soda pop and he goes like, soda pop. If you look closely, he has little like white dots inside his pupils, and that scene sticks out a lot. He looks like he would have been animated in the 40s or something.
Yeah, it is a bit unusual, but just before that, I love how he's running through the town, and these backgrounds are incredible. I love them. They're absolutely amazing to see. Say what you want about some of the work in the 50s, some of the studios have done. At least the backgrounds look amazing, even if the shorts at times are not. So I love the
Oh
1950s
yeah.
aesthetic. It's always great.
Well, and at the same time, this cartoon benefited from Friz Freeling's main layout guy, Holly Pratt, doing not only like the background layouts, but also some pretty nice character posts. While watching the cartoon, I was thinking how if with his character layouts and distinct character poses, how the animators would have interpreted it. And it looks very appealing.
No, for sure. And you already mentioned the wonderful animation of Sylvester backing through the lab, and there's a sody pop, which I think that's his only line in the whole short. I think that's the only thing that Sylvester actually says, and a few laughs. I think he just says that one line. I'm sure Mel Blake was already in the recording booth. Oh, can you just say one line? Sure, why not?
Yeah. Maybe Sylvester did have more dialogue in the boards, but Chris Freeling or someone else felt it was just better to cut out the dialogue and leave it to Spike and, sorry, Alfie and Chester.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm always going to get that confused.
And the animation of Sylvester's transformation plus the sound effects.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing stuff. It's like in anime how the animation is generally just very basic, right? But they usually save the budget for the one money shot. This is kind of it.
Oh,
The
yeah.
money shot is this transformation in this short.
It's probably no wonder that they reused a lot of animation at the same time. If you're going to save it for anything, definitely use it for something like that.
Okay. So we get reused animation in the bit where Chess is like, hey, he can't do that to my pal when the door is slammed. That's repeated. So, of course, Alfie kicks down the door, marches through. That's again repeated animation. And when he's white as a ghost stepping out, which again, economical, you hear a ruckus. And I guess the effect is much better when you don't actually see it in this case because it's so bad as white as a ghost, So it's repeated animation there. So then Chester's all confused, but the animation of Monster Sylvester, that's what we'll call him, Monster Sylvester, slashing wildly, but then shrinking back and saying meow really weakly. Amazing.
I love that bit.
It's fantastic. And another bit of reused animation, again, Chester leading Alfie back into the building. And again, when Alf is marching on, once he sees the other door, where it's like, I got a job to do, he's marching through. So there's that. Again, not a criticism, just pointing it out. So now Sylvester's hiding in a box, and again, a wonderful bit of animation where he pops out of this box and transforms, and that grin that Alf does, just a shocked grin. It's amazing. How gruesome is it, though? You've got Sylvester, he's poking holes in his face. Like, wow.
Oh, yeah. That gag actually kind of makes me cringe the more I think about it. And thank goodness there's not even an instance of blood in this short, but if that's probably a little too real for cartoon standards.
I think so, but that's why thankfully we see most of the scuffle off screen once again, because economics, people.
Oh, yeah.
And Elf is like, it's just a scratch. And that's a good moment to slow-mo, him falling apart. It's done in such a way where it's just, that's gruesome. But hey, we got no blood, so at least that's something, right?
Someone's going to freeze frame that and study it and do an animation for a horror music video, and it.
Yeah. So Elf runs away. He's all freaked out, as you would be, because he was literally torn apart by this aggressive monster.
Yeah. By the way, this is just a teeny tiny nitpick. And again, I understand this from an economical standpoint. And at the same time, like maybe this was also the intention, but like you'd think when Alfie runs away, Chester would immediately turn his head around and notice Sylvester in his monster form. But no, he just stares off in the same direction and finally turns his head around after Sylvester shrinks back to his normal size. Again, just a nitpick. It's like, come on. But again, if you're going to do the formula, again, I get it. It's not really an issue with the short, it's just more of a nitpick.
And that animation, again, the whole swinging animation, which was actually used twice in Tree for 2, here it's used only once, and it's a great piece of animation. So I guess if you're going to reuse something, might
Oh,
as well
yeah.
reuse something really good, right? So
Oh,
he swings him out, and hey, we get something new, right? This part made me crack up more than probably I should have, right? Chester has a gun. Where did this gun come
that I
from?
was gonna say, like, okay, Alfie was the tough guy who didn't fear Chester. Where did the gun come from?
Yeah, that made me just laugh way more than I should have. It was ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
And it never shows up again. That's what's even
Yeah,
funnier.
it's just this gun. It's like, wow, okay, at least I've said it before and I'll no doubt say it again. When Freeze really reuses stuff, a lot of the time he does improve on what's come before, and him having the gun at this point, I thought was hilarious. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
But we get something new. So Sylvester leaves and we actually never see him again in the rest of the short. He just leaves. So it's like he escapes. It's like there's no punchline with him. He
Yep.
just goes. So it's like, okay. Like you think there'd be something else with Sylvester, but really no. But we see something new. And so Alfie's like, oh, okay, I can somehow impress Chester. I don't know why he needs to. I thought he was this big tough guy that didn't care for him. But anyway, he does this fake fight. He's throwing beakers everywhere, and one of them lands in a spot where the formula drips onto a fly with a beautiful design, beautiful animation with the choking sound as well that you hear. And the animation of the fly beating up Alf. Look at the weight of the throw.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of weight there. I don't know who animated that, but they definitely understood weight very well. I should say a lot of flies, like, I can't stand them, so having that fly just turn up and just beat the stuffings out Alfie is just hilarious.
Yes, he escaped, so we got repeated animation of Alf being scared, yelling, he's a killer, he's a killer. So that's the second last bit of repeated animation. But the look on Chester's face of disgust at Alf, his expression was priceless. And he even spits at Alf. He's at him and calls him
Like,
Yeller.
shame on you.
Calls him Yeller, which is
Yeah,
like yellow belly, like it's mean you're a coward. It's like it's just a
Yeah.
fly. And the funny part about this gag and why it works so well is that he's looking on, he sees that it's a monster, but it's still a fly. It's still this tiny little thing. So that's what makes it work well.
Yeah, like, if it was Sylvester, then sure, but no, the fact that it's a fly, it's like, "Bruh, come on."
Exactly, 100%.
Um,
And the last scene, again, it's repeated from Tree for 2, where now the roles are reversed, and Alf is now the excitable one, and Chester's the tough guy, and it's like, nah, just slaps him, and that's it.
I would definitely take Tree for Two over it, but it's still an enjoyable enough short. I would definitely watch it closer to Halloween time, especially, but otherwise, I wouldn't say that the short is anything to write home about, but for what it is, it's still very fun to watch, even with some, and again, not a criticism, but like reused animation from the other short, and I guess some gags that are similar and some gags that are new at the same time.
Oh, for sure. And look, again, most people, they are not going to really know anything about the reuse of animation. They're just going to watch it. It's just us who have watched
Oh,
these,
yeah.
studied these, and me watching them in a row. It's like, this looks familiar. And sure enough,
Yeah.
it is. So in terms of a rating, look, this one, I don't know, gets like 8.5 out of 10. I found myself laughing a lot at it. And yeah, okay,
Mm.
fine, reuse animation, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't factor that in the score at all. I'm just judging it by the execution and how it ended up. And I thought this one was hilarious and it was a great idea, which I know that Frizz will revisit in a future Sylvester and Tweet short, Hide and Go Tweet.
Sure.
And it's not a bad idea. It's actually quite funny and I like it. Yeah, 8.5.
I give it a 7. Again, I'll take Tree for Two, which my rating for that is either an 8 or a 9. But at the same time, it's like I said, still enjoyable. Just I guess doesn't tickle my fancy as much as the other one, but still enjoyable for what it is. You can never go wrong with Chris Reeling and Warren Foster reusing the same thing and still getting some good mileage out of it, especially thanks to the animation team and Holly Pratt's contributions, and of course, Mel Blanc and Stan Freberg.
Exactly. Yeah, they play each other so well. But that will do it for this one, Chester. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, take care.
Y'all yella, but I still love you.
I say, we're jolly chums, aren't we, Chester, old boy?
Nah.
Chester's me hero, 'cause he's so brave and strong. Yeah.